All right, so I kind of explained the idea, right? I get to hang out with people, film a lot of people, interview them, and today is like the first day that I'm going to actually record me as well. So I'm very appreciative of you for allowing me to do this,
Of course. I'm so
experimenting with you. And technically, this is my first podcast.
Yay! I'm honored, man. I
Love
am
it.
blessed today.
Yeah. So in my podcast, I figured I would run people through exercises that would give them content, like come up with the ideas that maybe they didn't have to speak about themselves in ways they didn't know how to speak about themselves. And you have a Rubik's Cube in your hand.
I do.
And one of the things that I loved when I read the book called Applied Empathy was this brand would take a Rubik's Cube, and because it's an object, you get out of your head and you start speaking straight from the heart. And so I just want you to speak from the heart and tell me the 6 sides of you.
Well, of course, the first one's love.
Cool.
Resilient. Been through a lot in my lifetime and I've been resilient. So love, resiliency, inspiration. 6 sides of me. Well, I'm gonna.
And your
I'm gonna
business.
say this. Yeah. Well, I'd like to use one of the sides, Jack, as mother.
Of course.
Because that's probably my greatest, gift and lesson, and it's taught me the most. And I could probably spend the whole podcast talking about being a mom. That's why I wear this particular necklace. This came from a little 25-cent machine, and my son was super little, and he gave it to me, and I turned it into a necklace. And so I wear it to remind me myself to stay centered with that. So that would be 1. So that's 3, 4.
Love, inspiration,
yes.
Mother.
Okay. Learner.
Cool.
I'm a seeker. I think that would be one side for sure. I'm definitely a seeker. I seek knowledge. I seek my own inspiration from other people. And lastly is grace. I think that word alone and that side of me and learning to embrace what grace really is has gotten me through those tough times. I think we're really hard on ourselves, and to be able to understand the fullness of what grace can bring to you. So I think that's a side. Also, from a business standpoint, I offer that too. By having that be one of my 6 sides, I'm able to give that to other people.
That's awesome.
So there's our 6 sides.
There you go. Love it.
Love it.
Now solve the Rubik's Cube.
Now I have to solve. Well, wait a minute. You painted it white. I can't. I mean, unless I kind of decipher. I guess there is a little bit of color through here.
I'm going to start buying all white ones, and then I'm going to give you a Sharpie so you can draw on it and then show the camera.
Oh.
And that'll be a little bit more visually
Well, here's the thing is that I
appealing.
know it's not in perfect sync because I can't move this side.
Because it's
So
all
I know I
sticky.
haven't solved it, even though it's all white. But maybe
one of
somebody
those
else
sides, you said you're a seeker. What
Yeah.
is one thing that you're seeking that very few people agree on? This is a question that came from a book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And he's a very big guy in the startup venture capital community. And he basically wants to know, what do you believe that nobody else believes? That it's hard for them to believe because they're not in your shoes. And as we're on camera, I'll just give you my example is one thing that I believed is becoming a skipper and a sailor on a boat taught me more lessons about life than school. And so very few people could say, I know what you're talking about because I'm a captain. Not too many people can say it. And so what is one thing that you are seeking or you believe to be true that very few agree on?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and I believe is my truth, and I've shared with some people, is the word feminine. As a single mother, as someone that has to run her own household, who has to bring in the income, I play a very masculine role. And I find myself seeking that feminine side. And there's a difference. You know, there's the feminist, but within that word, there's the feminine. And I think I'm seeking to get back to really, you know, I believe in equality, and I'm not saying that isn't important, because it's absolutely vital. But I also am a firm believer that when you go back all the way to the beginning, men and women come from different places, and we're built differently. Our brains are wired. I mean, you could read every study there is on that, and we're just wired differently. And I think that we really need to get back to, and I'm seeking, even for myself, to make sure that I embrace that feminine side, that softer side, because that's the way we're built. I mean, I think that's,
we could be on both sides. Yeah, totally.
And it's exactly. I mean, we all have masculine and feminine energy, right? So right. Males have more masculine energy, but there's still that feminine side. And I think
most males,
right? Exactly. And I think if we look at that and balance that out a little bit, and appreciate that I'm going to have more feminine energy than you.
Yeah.
And appreciate and value that and embrace that, I think we would find that there can be even more equality if we were to embrace that side of what we're each made of. In the essence. I mean, I'm talking like primal, that true essence of who we are.
Yeah, it's like being okay with who you are, even though you're maybe a little bit more feminine or masculine. I actually took a test to see what I was. And the first time I took it, I was on the 1 point on the feminine side. Second time I took it, it was like 1 point on the masculine side. I'm like, what? This doesn't make sense. But I basically looked at it like, I know I'm sort of feminine at times, and I'm okay with it. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
What I have here is this notebook that I got from Date with Destiny, led by Tony Robbins,
right,
and his team. And there's two sides, and basically what they're saying is polarity comes down to masculine and feminine energies. And if I'm masculine and you and I are dating, it's like, I need you to be feminine in places where I'm really masculine to like help balance out the polar sides.
Yes.
And in a relationship, it's required that you know what it is that you want. So do you want to be more feminine? Okay. You know, here's how you get feminine energy. And I'll just list off the...
Oh, please do, because here's the seekers that I immediately went into, okay, feed me more. I'm a seeker. I want to know.
How about this? I'll list off the masculine energy. You read the feminine ones.
Okay.
So masculine energy, there are 10 things, and the ways that we get those energies are trying to empty. The second one is want to experience freedom. This was huge at Date with Destiny. We literally yelled, freedom! Yeah. As he had all the men stand up and yell freedom, because we needed to really feel it. And I even remember in that moment, I was like, I think I'm the lowest of them. But it was important to yell it, and I still yell it today sometimes. And now I hear guys all the time talk about how they want freedom. And I'm like, that's because that's masculine energy. They make big things small. They want to be appreciated. Wants freedom again. So they wants to experience freedom and wants freedom. It's basically on there twice.
It's a big thing.
It is big.
I've discovered that through my dating life. and through, my intimate relationships with men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys want freedom.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised it's on there twice.
The sixth one is we're stimulated by challenge, or masculine energy is stimulated by challenge. 7, it says leaves. So maybe they walk away. 8 is a storm of peace. 9 is lets go, like they let go of things. And then 10 is they forget.
Okay.
So those are masculine energies.
All right.
And then you read me the feminine energy and just like riff on it. Tell me what you think about it.
Okay. I probably needed my glasses.
Oh.
But that's okay.
They're basically like opposites-ish.
Yes. Okay, so number 1, feminine energy. Trying to fill up. Wants to experience love. Makes small things big. Wants to be understood. Wants to be owned. Stimulated by praise. Gathers. Yeah, we are gatherers. Storm of light. Hangs on and remembers. So what's interesting, even just like visually seeing this, you can there's opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing, okay, all right. So here's my personal thing. So number 5 says wants to be owned. And I don't necessarily, I guess, you can look at the word owned in a certain way, but the way that I can relate to that is I want to fold into someone. And if that, I always tell people, or the men that I associate with, I can take care of myself, but I do want to feel like I'm being taken care of. And if you want to call that ownership, I would use that lightly, but that kind of falls into play, because I never want, I've had the men where I've had to be play the dominant role and be in a very masculine place. I've also been in a very narcissistic relationship before. And it's like completely different. And I always say that I don't necessarily want someone completely equal. And this is where number 5, I want someone just a little bit like ahead of me, because I want to feel soft. What I was talking about earlier, that feminine energy.
Yeah.
I want to feel soft. I want to own that femininity. I do want to take care of you, but I also want to feel like I can fold into someone at the end of the day and I guess be owned.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing, right? It's
it can be quite beautiful. I just got covered in goosebumps when I said it. That's just, and when I get covered in goosebumps, that means that I'm speaking from my authentic self, I believe. It happens to me all the time when I'm speaking, either on an individual basis or just randomly with someone at the grocery store, and I speak from my authentic self. So when I said it can be really beautiful, and we've put so much emphasis on it has to be this way and it has to be that way, and let's create some more beauty in the world.
Right. Even if the beauty is just realizing it's okay to have feminine energy. As a man, for me, yes. It's okay. Maybe you want to fold in to a girl who's the same, ahead of you a little bit. Well,
that's the thing. Let's see, wants to be appreciated. Isn't that you wanting to fold in to us a little,
yeah.
To feel appreciated?
Mm-hmm. Let me stop this real quick.
Sure. I think it's actually, I think when you can seek the knowledge, then you can show up differently. And I'm showing up differently in a different way by understanding these. So.
I'm not trying to make this too long.
Okay.
Really just an experiment on the first one.
Yeah, your exercise.
Yeah, my exercises.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Collective X and Johnny. That was a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, so I'm trying to use this book, but like it's really just a outline of what I would eventually have as exercises. So none of them are set in stone. So when I see a moment where I'm like, ooh, that book's already made, let's talk about that.
Sure.
I'm going to jump into it.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what I want my podcast to be, is I went and learned this information at Date with Destiny. And one of the coolest things that I recognized was I sat down with the girl that I am talking to now. And we went through that, and I was like, where do you get your energy? I need to know. Like, I want to know. And it helped. And it was like, okay. Because she was a little masculine, you know, like in places, and I could recognize where I shouldn't be masculine when she's masculine, because that's actually what causes us to like butt heads. And when the other side is taking over the energy that we're supposed to be getting, then we tend to drift apart. And so it's, if you flip a few pages back, there's like a chart. It should be on like a red page where it's about selection. And you need to select the right person. And so knowing these things about your partner is really important.
Learning and knowing about your partner reminds me of when I was engaged to be married to my son's dad. He noticed I had an engagement ring on, and I was working retail at the time. His wife was shopping, and he goes, so, when are you getting married? And I told him, and he goes, would you like a bit of advice? And I said, sure. He goes, well, my wife and I've been married, I think it was like 40 plus years. And I was like, wow, congratulations. You know, that's a really long time in today's world. And he said, there's two things. He goes, first, once a year, my wife and I go to the self-help section of the bookstore or the library, and we pick out one book and we read it together. So there's that self-discovery together. And then he said, there's not one morning that I don't wake up to take the very best care of her. And he said, that doesn't mean that, you know, I lay in bed all day with her. It doesn't mean that I buy her chocolates every day. That means that I get up, I do the work that needs to be done to better myself, from exercising and all of that to providing for my family. But I wake up every single morning, and it is my goal to make her a happier person. And she does that for me. And I thought that was really interesting because, you know, when you get to know your person, and that when you
select the right person.
When you select the right person, I think that that's key. When you've got that balance of, okay, let's talk about the feminine and masculine energy. When you can actually have an open conversation with someone like that, that's pretty powerful. Because there are a lot of people out there that you can't. And can do, will do, and team fit. Love it.
I carry that notebook around me everywhere. Any day that I'm like, I don't feel so great, I pull it open. Yeah. Just flip through it and remind myself what it was I felt when I was at that conference. How high on life I was just from self-discovery. But that's a cool story. I think about this last week, and I probably didn't do a good enough job asking her what it is that I need to do for you. I think what I did was I just assumed she wanted to lay in bed and cuddle. And so I did, but maybe she needed something else. And it actually cuddling and like laying in bed for too long is not good for me. Right. It was like, I was up at 7:00. Like I wanted to get out. Yeah. So I should have thought more about what's good for me that could be good for her.
Well, I have...
but that happens, you know, you lay in bed sometimes.
Well, yeah. I mean...
I ain't complaining, that's for sure.
Well...
It was just like a awareness, like, I think I could have done something else, or I cannot do this every single day.
Right. Well, here's that same gentleman reminded me of an escalator. And he goes, think of you and your partner as on opposite sides of the escalator. You have to be individual people. And the escalator, every once in a while, right, there's that one spot on the escalator where you are in alignment, where you are at the same level. And he goes, that's when the magic happens. That's when the spark happens. That's when the great sex happens. Meet all that. Yeah. It's like there's that total connection. But you have to go back out and be your own person. So when you come back together, there's that electric, magnetic energy. And he said, and you'll never be in love at the same time except for that brief moment. And it is like the escalator. 1 minute you're gonna be totally into her, and then it's just gonna, and then you're giving, and then you kind of drop off, and she senses it. If you've selected correctly, right, and you're in tune with each other, she'll notice that and start to elevate, her effort towards you. And I can tell you from my dating experience that, ladies out there, if you're listening to this, ask your man what you can do for them that day or that week. Say, what can I do to make your day better? I'm telling you what, ladies, you'll have them melting in your hands. And in the men that I've asked that to, they're like, wow, no one's ever asked me that before. And it's that show of appreciation. Like, I appreciate you so much that I want to do something for you this week. A gentleman at one point, I was like, is there anything, I texted him, I was like, oh, by the way, is there anything that I can do to make your day better? And I loved his response. He said, I just want you to have a really good day, and I love your smile, so I hope it's full of lots of smiles.
That's beautiful.
Oh, I mean, it's like,
where is this guy?
Yeah, verklempt just thinking about it, and how beautiful.
Yeah, I think that is true. Is like when you see someone else really happy and glad of all the activities they've done that day.
Yeah.
It makes you be like, oh, I need to make sure that I'm going to do good things that day too.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to that gentleman's piece of advice that he wakes up every morning and his goal is to make his wife happy.
Yeah.
And even on the mother side of the Rubiks Cube, as a mother, it's like when I see my son thriving and happy, and then it just makes my world so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, warms my heart.
Okay. Next exercise is called questions and empathy cards.
Oh boy.
I don't know where I put the cards, but I do have them written down.
I feel like it's those affirmation cards we played with at Lulu Lemon.
Yeah. Oh, they're very similar.
Do I have to read? Oh, I have to read these? Okay, hold on.
Honestly, I was just giving them to you so you can hold them.
Okay, all right.
I was thinking at the end of this, we...
just in case.
I don't know. Take a little video of all the little books and cards and whatnot.
Well, just in case.
Yeah. So on the same brand as the Rubiks Cube, I read this book called Applied Empathy, and what they did was they found 7 archetypes of people. One of them is a seeker, actually. There's like an inquirer, an alchemist, a host, convener, and basically all these types of people. And the way that I use them is, if I want to be more adventurous, I'm going to ask myself these questions of the seeker. And so if we're in a situation where I want someone to be sort of the alchemist, where they're supposed to create new ideas, I would get them to start asking these questions about themselves, and they get into this river of thinking to then propel them to think more about how to create something if they need to be the alchemist. Mm-hmm. And so this exercise is on the back of there's 7 archetypes, the back of the box.
Oh, okay.
And again, I'm just kind of making this up as we go, but
Sure.
the exercise that I would love to do is say, what archetype are you? What archetype do you resonate with the most?
Well, I guess seeker, an inquirer, but seeker.
Mm-hmm.
I've used that word a lot to describe me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like go new places.
Yeah.
Learn new things.
What haven't I discovered? You know, a seeker to me is when I hop in the car, I love to just get in the car and drive, and then I play this game with myself. Well, I've driven 5 miles, I'll turn left and see where it goes. And then I'll turn right. And
next thing you know, you're in Mission Hills and you're like, wow, these are big houses.
Big houses. Or you go further south and you take a left, and all of a sudden there's like a zebra, a llama on this big plot of land, and was it a giraffe? I can't remember, but I was like, I would have never seen this. I had to stop and like actually take a picture. People probably wouldn't even realize it, but it's because I took left versus right.
I love it. I'm trying to think. I wrote some questions. You know, I was trying to like narrow down what kind of questions would be good for people who talk about their heart and heart work and stuff like that. As I was telling you before, I work with another guy named Zach, and we're always talking about our heart, like what's your heart say, and so I tried to pull out the cards that were
and wrote your questions.
Yeah, good for the heart.
Okay.
And so in this full exercise, I would just go through these questions. But I want to start with, what types of questions make you uncomfortable? And it can't be this one, because that's what everybody says.
What types? Well, questions that make me expose my vulnerability. Hands down.
And why?
Because that's full exposure.
Yeah.
Because the work that, you know, I'm in such a public forum that, and people look to me so much that I deal with a lot of what people come seeking me for. Self-esteem. I mean, people probably think that I have all this self-esteem. Well, there are moments when I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes across and asks that question of where I have to expose that and be vulnerable, it's almost like, well, then, oh gosh, what if somebody finds me out?
What happens when they do find out?
Well, they find out I'm a real person, you know, and I don't think that's such a bad thing. Because isn't that what we all need to speak our truth? And it's almost a sense of relief when people are like, oh, really? Erin Paige deals with that too? Wow.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh my gosh, I deal with that every day. But the initial question, I know the internal voice inside is like, how do I really feel about telling them that and exposing myself?
Nice. So that was from Sub Rosa, I don't even know how to describe their company, but the founder wrote this book, made these cards, and they go through these cards with their new clients.
Love it.
And so I was just like, that would be so fun if my new clients, and this is kind of what I'm doing here, is just like sit them down and like, I have these questions, like just start pulling cards, and it'll get to that point one day.
Yeah, it will.
But I'm going to go to a new segment or a new brand or a different brand, which is the School of Life. And the School of Life is an organization that teaches emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a conference out in LA back in January, I think, maybe February. And one of the things that we did on the very last day was we wrote down our biggest dreams that we've had for ourselves. And I'm going to ask you what your biggest dream is, but I want you to be prepared to throw it away. Because because that's what we did.
Yep.
So what is...
You're hitting something, because I'm already tearing up here.
What is your biggest dream that you've ever had? It's basically like, who did you want to become?
This is so relevant for me right now with, but my biggest dream was at one point to be famous. I wanted to be a household name. And I realized that that to go out there and seek that dream of being famous, if you will, and a household name, really took me out of the authentic message. So when you say throw it away, that's actually what I've done recently. And I'm more, it feels better. It feels so much better to throw away that word famous and tune into authenticity and being authentic. And by throwing away famous and focusing on being authentic and speaking from the heart and that heart-centered space and really speaking from love, the other will come. But just coming back to one. I was taking on way too much. And that actually was putting more restraints on me to get the message out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you know what you're going to do.
Well,
you write it out, and then we're going to crumble it up and you're going to toss it in the trash.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Even though you've already done it, the point that they were trying to make, and I probably had the hardest time with this exercise at the conference more than anything else that they were doing. I don't know. I still don't know why, but I had such a hard time writing out that I wanted to be someone who was jumping out of planes, skydiving, a Red Bull athlete, flying these drones all over the world, like at high speeds, using my physical, kind of God-given talent of like this 6'2" athletic guy. And I was like, I want to use that. I want to be that for the rest of my life. I had a really hard time throwing that away. And it was supposed to relieve us, right? It's kind of like why I started this off, was like, you had this relief that you didn't need to show up as this person, and you can just show up as yourself. And to stop holding on to this aspirational image of who you're going to be, to like kind of give up hope and then just sit in who you are now and being okay with that. It was tough for me. It's still probably the tougher thing that I have to like think about, because I have all these hopes, and like everyone keeps telling me, you're only 26. Wow, if I was like in your shoes when I was your age and I knew what you knew, and like if I was reading the stuff that you read, it's like I'd be in so many places. And so like a lot of times I'm like all hopped up on like who I'm going to be, and it's really I don't think it's serving me as much as I like the dopamine or the rush of like when people tell me this, like, you're going to be this great thing. It's like,
it's amazing what someone's perception of you and the outside opinion, how that can seep through and really alter what you know is your truth, and you start to borrow everyone else's perception. I mean, even the word famous, when I said that I sang when I was young, at one point my dad was willing to look at having me audition for Juilliard. I mean, when I say I can sing, I can sing.
Yeah.
And I started listening to everyone else's, like, I wanted to go to Broadway and I wanted to be on stage and et cetera, et cetera. And then, well, what if you don't make it? What if you don't make the money? All of those things started seeping in. So, my degree is a BFA. I have a degree in visual communication, graphic design. And yes, I'm an artist, but the stage is really where my home is. So much that a defining moment for me was in college when we did a variety show. And as a seeker, way back when, I mean, I was born this way, I remember being backstage and all the hustle and bustle of this and that, and I separated myself from all of that, and I went out onto the stage, and it was all dark. House lights were dark, and the spotlight was on. It must have been meant to be. But I walked out there and I felt like I was home. And it wasn't to be famous. It just is who I am. And so, it's not as hard for me to write this down. You said it was hard for you. It's not as hard for me to write this down because I've done so much work on that inner being and that self-talk and being willing to let go of the reins and being present and appreciating the presence. So it's easy for me. I want to be famous, household name. Okay, let's crumple it up. It's out of here,
Toss it.
Yeah, just, it's out of here.
Yeah. It was a fun exercise. I think it's important that we at least attempt that feeling of throwing it away.
Yes.
Even attempting it. Because what are you left with? Who you are right now.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah, my co-founder, he told me one time, he's like, I see the aspirations that you want to become, but he's like, there's just a huge gap in like what you're doing now versus what you want to become. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, I was like, dude, I know, like what the fuck? Like, why can't I bridge that gap? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't have that answer for you, but he's like, that's what I see. And I'm like, all right, well, at least I'm aware that that's there.
It's a huge word, is awareness. When you can become aware, then you can make the adjustments. Someone once told me, don't borrow trouble.
Don't borrow trouble.
Don't borrow trouble. Because those aspirations and what people see, it's absolutely there, but you're borrowing trouble by wondering why it's not happening so fast. Why am I not there yet? And that actually is counterproductive. And that's what keeps me in check sometimes when I'm borrowing trouble or borrowing from the future instead of appreciating what's going on. And those baby steps, you're in the process of baby steps right now. And what happens, right? I mean, we don't just leap across, over to where we want to be. We have to take those steps, and it's the journey. And then you look, and then you find it's kind of like buying a new car or buying anything new. You're like, oh, I've been aspiring to get this type of car forever, and then you get it, and it's like, oh, okay. But you think about all the steps that it took to get you there and to have the funds to go purchase it. And you go, that was really fun. That was really fun. What can I do next? How can I make it happen? How cool is that? It's almost like the object in the garage is only temporary, but you have all that inner knowledge and that seeking that happened along the way to get you there. That's fun to reflect on. So don't borrow trouble.
I'm gonna leave it at home.
Jack. Yeah.
Nah, not even at my home.
No.
I'll leave it outside the garage.
Yeah. There we go.
All right, last little exercise. And I picked this up from Pixar, and one of the things that they do is a game where you fill in the blank. And so what we're going to do is...
Like Mad Libs?
Is that what it is? Is that what they're called, Mad Libs? Yeah, you fill in the blank.
Yeah, I grew up on those. Love
so
them.
I have a sentence, well, I have a few sentences, and it's going to tell a story, but I want you to fill in the blank, whatever you think. Once upon a time, there was
a girl.
Every day.
She took a walk.
One day.
She turned left instead of right.
Because of that.
A whole new world was open to her.
And because of that.
She found her voice and could go be of service.
Until finally
she became who she was brought here to be. That's my story.
I love it. I like that exercise.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
You may have to send that to me.
Okay.
I may have to borrow Pixar's information, their little game.
It's called Story Spine, but they actually had like 20 different like bullets of like how to look at a story and how to craft a story, and it's really for the creators. So when they're like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to take out. It's like these are like the philosophies that they would use to write their stories.
Brilliant. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That free flow of just words flowing.
Yeah.
Creates a whole story, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Love that exercise.
Okay, you have the floor to ask me questions.
All right, so Jack, which one of the 7 are you?
I'm a seeker.
Okay. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So I took the Enneagram test. You're familiar with it? The different numbers tells you about different personality types. And right now, the top one is a romantic, which means I have idealistic views of the world and how it should be. And it also means I get emotional. So when things don't go my way or it's not ideal, I'm pretty emotional. And my friends and girlfriends, they could probably all tell you, you're great one day and then you call me the next day and like we're breaking up. And that's what's happened, is like I dive into too many thoughts. What I realized when I took that test is that right now, I took it when I'm not traveling, I'm romantic. I'm the romantic. But when I'm traveling, I am fully the number 7, which is the adventurer and the seeker. And my friend Zach and some other people are just like, when you go travel and you come back, you're a different person. And so right now I'm like trying to juggle or like, which one am I? Is like, I know I'm the seeker, but why did the test come up as the romantic? And you can be both. You can, have different strengths or different weight in those personality types. But I believe that the seeker is the one that like really serves me. It's like, really, you are your unique self. If you're put in positions where you're being adventurous and I guess outgoing, but like seeking knowledge, kind of like what you've said. And I think this podcast is my way of doing that while at home. At least for now, I'm going to try.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how does it, do you, in your words, everyone, when you come back from these adventures, sees a difference in you. In your words, describe how you feel when you come back.
First is recharged, and I always feel better if I'm saying no to things more than I'm saying yes. And it's because I'm feeling calmer. But I say yes to so many things. And when I travel, I have like an excuse, like I can't say yes. I'm not there. Like I can't do coffee, or, my friend asked me, is like, can you sit down and like edit with me? And if I'm traveling, it's like, no, I can't do that at all. And then nobody's kind of like messaging me. I don't even think about going out. And when I was just in Colorado, it was like I'm sitting by a river at a coffee shop reading these transcripts of the clients that I work with, and like I was so focused. And when I have focus, that tends to lead to more momentum of doing things that serve me in the long run. And it's almost like I need less instant gratification when I'm traveling and when I'm out being the adventurer. And then when I come home, that's like kind of all I want. I want the candy, I want the movies, I want the fun parties. But in my words, I'm recharged, I'm focused, and I'm unapologetically my true self. Basically, I'm not censoring like what I think people want to hear. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying what I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, just remember, no is a one-word sentence. Because I'll say yes to all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah, that was the reason I stopped drinking, is like I wanted to say no to something consistently. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of fallen off that promise that I made with myself, but I still say it. I'm like, I do not drink. And it is like in me now that I don't want to drink. And I feel like empowered by it. I also feel unique a little bit, and that's my seeker, my adventurer side, where I want to be like unique. But that was the reason behind it. It was that and money. It's like make more money, save more money, mm-hmm. and say no.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Feel powerful, yeah.
You and I talked about that several months ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is a sense of empowerment. I mean, I went to an event last night, and I knew I wasn't going to stay very long, and I knew I would spend most of the day with you, and I needed to be completely present. I could have had a celebratory glass of wine or, a cocktail of some sort, and just to say no, it's like, nah, I'm good.
But even when you left, did it feel like you were letting people down? When you left early, that event?
No, and the reason why is because I know I'm really clear, even though sometimes I dip a little bit, very clear at the direction that I'm headed. And if I don't when you said unapologetic, I'm unapologetic, or I'm not going to apologize for leaving early because I know where I'm headed. And it's almost like you don't compromise, and I'm not going to compromise that.
I love that you said that word. I had this question written down. What is something you're you said it.
Uncompromising?
Yes. What is something you're uncompromising in? Like you will not compromise.
I will no longer compromise the mother that my son deserves. I won't do that anymore. It took a long time for me to stand up for him against other forces and to listen to what he was really saying. Saying yes too many times to activities when he needed me home. I refuse to compromise who I am showing up in front of him. I don't know if that all made sense, and the joy of me being unwavering that compromise has been so beautiful. So beautiful to watch this young man, this beautiful soul that's taught me so much, to watch him shift because I'm there for him now.
Yeah, you just told me earlier the way he spoke was different.
Yeah, when he called me a
year ago.
Absolutely.
And but he also said that it was because of the way that you are being yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking my truth, therefore it opens up the door for him to feel safe. Kids want to feel heard. Well, we all want to be heard, and we all want to feel safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't compromise that shit anymore. You know, I just, and he's been my greatest teacher. And it's an honor to be his mother. And I want to show up in my absolute fullness for him. So yeah, I won't compromise that anymore.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. Thank you for asking the question.
You're welcome. Thank you for being yourself.
You're welcome.
And thank you for being on my first podcast.
Yay! I'm so excited. Maybe that's the Leo in me. I love to be first.
Yeah. First one that I'm really taking ownership of these books that I carry around with me, these questions that I've always got written down. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're questions that I ask myself, but they're questions that come from other brands. And for so long, I was just like, that's not my question to ask. But I don't care anymore. Who else is asking them?
Exactly.
Except the people that I listen to, and I'll ask all the people that I talk to.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you are a dynamic soul. I knew that the first minute I met you several months ago in a totally different capacity. Mm-hmm. And
at Lulu Lemon. Yeah.
Lulu Lemon.
We love Lulu.
We love Lulu.
I'm pretty much wearing all Lulu. You'll call me.
Yes, pretty much. That's, yeah, I have my whole drawer full. But that's a good,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I want to acknowledge you for stepping out on your own journey and saying you're going to create content for your message, but to help other people. I saw it today when we were, doing some testimonials with the people that have come to your speaking gigs and your one-on-one and your workshops. And it's clear to me that they need to hear Erin more than just in person. So I'm really excited for you to, you already do your YouTube, but really use the abilities that you have.
It's time to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
knock it out
time
of the park.
time to bloom in fullness, both of us.
Totally.
So.
Yeah.
Thank you, love.
Thank you. If you like this podcast and you want to see more of it, I'm putting up short little videos, maybe 15 minutes on YouTube. The full-length interview with Erin Paige is on my Patreon account. You can just type in Patreon, Jack Blake, and you'll get access to the people that I work with, and I'm going to try to really bring out the specific knowledge that they carry with them inside the practices that they do for other people. And so that's my goal. If you're okay with it, I'm going to share this on Patreon, and then hopefully one day we will do another one where we're going to dive deeper into specifics, tactics, kind of like hard, heavy stuff that people could use to help improve their own lives.
I love it. Bring it on.
Sweet.
Can't wait.
All right.
Thank
See you
you.
next time. Peace.